Okay, so welcome everyone. Count panel, but it's kind of conceived as a round table as well. So if you're in the audience and you want to contribute, then just wait for Danny to bring you a roving mic so that anyone who is watching on the internet, hello, then you can, well, you can't ask a question, but then at least you can hear the question that someone else is asking. And we do have my friend Daniel, who's in Budapest and couldn't join us for the panel, but he has a venue there. He'll be joining us remotely, so hopefully he's already listening to this, and we'll have him on the big screen. So to explain a little bit, which is sometimes not that clear, especially to moderators and of panels that we've had in today, is the working of my brain. And I'm going to explain what motivated this session, and then I'll have all the panelists introduce themselves. I noticed a few years ago that bands were going to play showcase events all around Europe and nothing was really coming out of it. And they were all flying over, doing a short set, and then flying home. And I didn't think that was a very effective way to develop careers. I didn't think it was very good for the environment. And so we also thought a really good idea would be to start with what we could do with our own event, and really how we could offer something to artists that were coming from a long way away to play at Y Days. So this is when our partnerships start to emerge with Quebec, with from Montreal in particular, but also now with Vienna. So what we did was we aligned our dates with Focus Wales. So artists that were coming long haul to play at Y Days could then have the opportunity to play at Focus Wales, and hopefully in between either go on a really nice trip around Scotland, which Laurent Sand did a few years ago, or secure another show in between, or at least one other show in between. My friend Lisa Wittek, who I will hopefully appear here later, I've already messaged her, she came up with this term corridor touring. And corridor touring, it was amazing. It's like Lisa comes up with this term and then suddenly you've got people in government using it like it's always existed, and in all these kind of Zoom meetings and stuff. Basically, it's the concept that you get a big festival booking, and en route to that festival, you plan a tour. So you play in other places so you can make a tour out of it, and it's not just one big show. And this is really taking that concept as well, but taking it a stage further, because what I felt was that if you're an artist and you're going to do a show somewhere, why not make it so that you don't necessarily have to fly, but also when you're stopping in places, you're making more connection points. So you could be doing a songwriting camp, you could be doing a talk or a lecture. So the big day when they played in Vietnam did a talk to music business students over there. It could be a community outreach thing, whereas in Mexico, I saw an American rap band that were going to do a talk in the neighborhood Tepito, which is somewhere where most sort of fair-skinned Mexicans don't tend to go, to be honest. I've been quite a lot, but there, it's there. You've got that kind of class difference, and this American rap act were like, well, we're going to go there and we're going to do a workshop with the local kids, and I think that sort of thing is really where you're creating touch points and connection points, but you're also doing something where it makes more of just that trip, that one show. And so we introduced something with our funding when we applied for multi-year funding with Creative Scotland called Make It Count. So I've basically pinched the name of our own concept, but then it's also, hopefully it'll end up in the vocabulary like Lisa's corridor touring. And the idea with this is that none of the artists that we support through our different initiatives should be going to just play one show, that there should be something around it. And then I'm going to reveal where we are with that, bring in our esteemed panelists, who I hope can all help inform this, and we can come out of this with some suggestions that we can hopefully follow up on, so that with the help of my esteemed guests, we can, if we're sending any of the artists from Scotland over to them, we can make sure they're doing other stuff as well. So, Sarah, do you want to start and introduce yourself, and I guess then go through briefly introduce yourself, and then we can start and maybe illustrate what we've already begun this year with a little pilot project that might lead to other things as well.
Yeah, hello and thanks for having me. There's a kind of outdated picture of me on there. I changed my haircut a little bit. Sorry to confuse you. I'm running Waves Vienna. It's a showcase festival and a conference happening in the beginning of October in Vienna, as the name says. It's been running now for 16 years. The DNA of the festival is like we wanted to create a music exchange hub between Eastern and Western Europe, and that's kind of outdated as well, like my picture. And so we changed it a little bit, or shifted more into politic topics. So yeah, I think you can see on the website or the size of the festival and the angle and everything. I myself, I'm also on the executive board of the Federation of Music Conferences, and doing some other stuff. Yeah.
Thank you. Janneke.
My turn. My name is Janneke, and I work at Eurosonic Noorderslag, ESNS for short, showcase and conference in Groningen in the Netherlands. This year, it's always in January, so we already had our edition this year. It was the 40th anniversary of the festival, so we've been around for a while, and we book around 300 artists from all over Europe. We have a focus on European music, and I'm part of the bookings team there.
Thank you.
In a nutshell.
Hello, everybody. My name is Fruzsina Szép, and I'm a festival director of Lollapalooza Berlin. That's an open-air festival based in Berlin in the Olympic Park, Olympic Stadium, around 50,000 capacity. And the other one I'm doing is called Superbloom. That's in Munich, in the other Olympic Stadium and Olympic Park in Germany. Also around 50,000 to 60,000 capacity. And I'm a board member of Europe. Maybe some of you have heard of that. That's the European Festival Association, where more than 130 European festivals and showcase festivals, like also Waves Vienna and Eurosonic Noorderslag and Sziget are also members. And I'm a big music lover and a music fan, and I'm super happy, and thank you, Olaf, again, that finally I can be here.
Yeah, it only took 15 years or something, but I asked, I think, in the summer last year, so timing is the key. If anyone wants to book Fruzsina, then hopefully you don't have to wait 15 years. Just make sure you ask her some point in August if you're hosting your event at the end of April.
No, really, thank you, Olaf, and it's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm so much looking forward to see all you playing, performing tonight and tomorrow, because what I've seen yesterday was already, the pitches were really cool and really, really good conversations with the artists.
Hi there, I'm Aniko from Sziget Festival from Hungary. I'm part of the booking team, and Sziget is happening in a prime festival season, early, mid-August, depending on the year. Yeah, we're one of the bigger European festivals, lots of stages, not just music, but arts as well, so lots to see, lots to do. 5+1 days this year. So.
Wow, so that's a marathon.
Yeah.
So how many of you have heard of Sziget? Okay, yeah, I think that is probably more famous than any Hungarian artist in Scotland. And this is one of the things that we thought was interesting with our festival takeover concept, because we thought very often the festivals were likely to be better known amongst our public than artists from that country. So then we thought, well, we'll get the festival in, and then they can bring artists rather than the other way around. So, yeah, this is a really good starting point, and I think that I'm gonna start with you, Sarah, because I know that obviously there's a little bit to talk about with what you really initiated, which I'm really grateful for, because I've been wanting to do it for years. This year, one of your artists came a bit earlier, so could you talk a little bit about what you're piloting at the moment, and with us and with Focus Wales with the residency?
Basically, we have the same aim like you. There was always like the experience that artists going to a showcase festival, they just like showcase festival is really busy. It's a very stressful time, so they go there, play their show, and some person coming with them is trying to get as many delegates as possible to the shows, and you're missing out a lot. So one thing is that we applied for funding for something called residency program. There was a public call, and the artist Oscar Haag, which is going to perform tomorrow at Sneaky Pete's, don't miss it, won this call, and he's now staying for 5 weeks in the UK, performing at the partner festivals, which is White Days, Focus Wales, and Great Escape. And the reason is like only performance is not like the key for getting a foot into a country or into a market. It's more about connection. And that's when we approached you, if you have any ideas what we could set up like with a Scottish artist. And there was also like this connection already with her picture we made last year when I was invited to use.
So her picture are in the room. We're going to ask you in a bit, we're going to put you on the spot about how you got on with this session, but her picture were on our talent development program last year, and then, yeah, this is where Sarah saw them, so yeah, do continue.
Yeah, so Oscar joined them in the studio. They took a writing session together, and I think it was quite successful, as far as I heard from Oscar. And so they are coming back to Vienna in autumn, and we're going to do a piece about this collaboration at our conference there, and maybe you can perform like 1 or 2 songs that came out of the writing session at Waves Vienna. So this is exactly what we are aiming for, like bringing artists together. And that's like also things we tried to set up. We had like a songwriting camp connected to the festival, and 3 days before the festival, so we chose 8 international artists to get together with 8 Austrian artists to get into this songwriting camp and perform there. Unfortunately, we've got some budget cuts and we have to pause the program for this year, but hopefully we are going to continue that for next year. So that's like something we really want to look forward to do more in the future.
And I think it's worth mentioning as well this idea where the showcase events, obviously the pandemic taught us that a complete reliance on live is a very precarious approach. So we've been developing support for artists and rights holders to learn about sync and what music supervisors are looking for. So part of this idea, to put it in not the nicest creative term, but you know, in that studio, you're obviously creating music, but you are creating intellectual property and a connection where, you know, hopefully you can appeal to audiences both in Austria and in the UK through these sorts of things. So again, it's reinforcing those connection points. And one of the other sort of things that we do is that we believe it's really important for the artists to meet each other. So we have a dedicated artist brunch. So all the artists that are coming from outside Scotland get an opportunity to meet with the musicians who are performing in New From Scotland or the talent development program we're hosting. So everything, and I think you really nailed the key word here, is about connection and creating as many connection points as possible. And I'd like to, open this out to the other three. Are there any things that you can think of already that you're doing, or on a formal or on an informal basis, where you're helping make more than, if someone's coming to play at one of your events, that you're helping them to perhaps do something else, or bringing them into another area of your festivals that might not necessarily be playing either in the conference or in one of the more artistic performing arts spaces that isn't music that you have?
Maybe to one thought. I mean, a festival, especially like Sziget and Lollapalooza or Superbloom, we are not showcase festivals, and I think that I think it's important also. I hope that is okay for you, my dear Olaf. But there's a difference, my dears, between a showcase festival and the the commercial festivals. Let's put it that way, because also like Sziget is not receiving any funding. We are not receiving any funding. We are also not applying for any funding. And it's a commercial festival. So the artists that we book is it's a well curated lineup, because we I have to see okay, what is the brand, because the brand is very important. Which artists fit the brand, the country, the city. Our audience. So it's a mix of various things that when you are booking a festival, you have to look at, and it would not make any sense if I would start booking. Although what I said, I mean, amazing, talented artists you have here in Scotland, but it would not be good for you guys if I would put you on any of our stages.
Hang on though, can I just interrupt you? You've got Fader this year, right? Who aren't doing it.
That's Sziget.
Right, sorry. Okay, yeah, of course. I apologize. I'll just shut up. Carry on.
No, I just want to say that if I book band, I would like to book the band because I feel that the moment is right for that band to be booked at one of the festivals that I'm responsible for, because it gives you like the platform and the playground that you can start to play with. And for me, it's always important that the emerging artists, that the newcomers, and you guys are the headliners of tomorrow, and we should not underestimate that you have the chance to feel well on stage, that you feel secure on the stage, that you don't have any stage fright. I have seen bands that had stage fright, and then the career is kind of, it makes a knicks, we say in German, and because when you are ready, then it's about the time that you play those open airs that give you also the next step to develop yourself. And what I also really very much, I mean, especially festivals that have already as a brand a name, like Sziget, or like Lolla or Superbloom. So people who come and buy our tickets, or the journalists, the media representatives, or the agents, the bookers, managers, talent buyers that come to our festivals, because they know that it's a well-curated lineup and that they will discover new artists. So this is also something that is happening on festivals, but it needs to be the right moment.
So auf den Punkt zu bringen, as they say so nicely in Germany. Is there anything that you know, I think one thing that, doesn't matter if you're a showcase festival or a commercial festival, I think we're all agreed that there's a desire to create more opportunities around sustainability, about good practice in that respect, and we all want to help artists progress and ensure that that their careers are sustainable, as well as obviously the sustainability around the environment. So I guess, and we can come back to this because I'm not putting you on the spot to go, all right, well, we're launching this initiative this year, but is there anything that you could immediately think of where you could say, all right, well, if we are asked by an artist that's, or their team or an agent that are coming to play our festival and say they're based in Wales, you book them, do you ever get asked and do you ever offer, albeit informal, advice on where they might be able to play elsewhere on that route, or how they might be able to make sure that they're not just flying in and out?
I mean, it doesn't happen so often that we are asked to give advice like that, to be very honest. But if something like this happens, and it happened already in the past, of course we help, and we can tell that, okay, who are the other festivals around us in that period where they could, knock on doors, and we give them the contact. So it's not like, writing to a newsletter or something like this, or even or to some, or to a cool club that we know, okay, they are absolutely open-minded and they're super happy to welcome those artists. And what also helps is if that artist has like an agent whom we can connect to others. That's obviously always very helpful. But because it's better if I don't want to tell any fairy tale stories. Of course, I love fairy tale stories, but if you're organizing a festival, it's also. So we don't have so much, and I'm really sorry to say that, but we don't really have so much time also to look after the artists, what other gigs they would like to have around our festivals. And I better be frank, because it's better that you know, but of course we are open to help, and as much as we can, we help. And we talked in the room downstairs, for example, we are not doing any, we don't ask for any exclusivity, because it's, for emerging artists, the most important thing is that you guys are playing, and not only at one festival.
So I think that's a really good starting point. Just to summarize it, you don't have exclusivity clauses, which I think is really helpful in the sense that if someone is being offered a gig, 50 miles away or somewhere relatively close, then they're not prevented from doing that. But also the fact is that if someone does say, look, we're trying to make this work both economically, but also from the point of view that we might actually want to try and come on the train rather than coming, but rather than flying in, that you are at least able to informally give some pointers. And of course, being part of the Europe board, you don't underestimate Fruzsina's influence and standing in this. She's won awards and everything. So it is something that, I think it's a good starting point. One quick question before I move on to Aniko. Do you have any arrangements, formal or informal, with sharing artists within the network, or specifically you? Because obviously, if you go to, quite often, I think with Øya and Bukta in Norway, you'll quite often as well see the same acts on at Roskilde and at Glastonbury, for example. Do you have any arrangements like that? And do you ever go to the other festivals? Look, we've booked this great act. You should check them out.
Yeah, absolutely. You're totally right, my dear Olaf. And by the way, my dears, I'm a normal human being, like we all here in this room. But thank you for your nice words, my dear. But like the touring periods during the summer time, normally it starts, let's say, beginning mid-May, already with the first festivals, and it ends with, let's say, end of August, beginning of September. And we call it, there are the June festivals, there are the July festivals, the August festivals. And we even have groups among each other, especially in the Europe, among the Europe festivals. And we have also from time to time regular calls with each other where we exchange and we share our knowledge, because it helps us, all of us, because we know, okay, oh, you're pitching that artist, oh great, if I do an offer, it helps both of us. Or if 3-4 festivals do an offer, it happens mainly when we start booking headliners or the co-headliners. Normally those are the first ones that we book, and then it's easier, also for the agent, It's much easier because they put together, so they collect all the offers and then they put together the routing. And also talking also about sustainability, because that's also a very important topic also for us festivals. Of course, it's wiser to have a routing when the artist is not traveling from north to east and from south to west, so that it makes sense, and the festivals are coming after each other, or somebody is playing on Thursday here and on Sunday at the other city. So we do that a lot, and it's a great cooperation and great work among us festival promoters and bookers. And it's it's a benefit for everybody.
Sorry, you wanted to come in here.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like you said, you don't have that much time. And first of all, you care about the headliners. When it comes down to new talents or emerging talents, like us, we are more on a collaboration level with some organizations like you. It's not that we do have 120 acts at our festival. We can recommend venues or other festivals to play around for each one. But we have the collaboration with you, and when you come up with an question we do have this artist from Scotland playing your festival. Do you know anything, any other promoters around that could be interested? Then it's more easier for us, because it's more like a streamlining of the operation. And when we do that and continue that for a couple of years, the knowledge about possible venues and promoters around Vienna grows as well, and you can pass on that information without asking us again. So I think that's crucial, that we try to get more collaboration on an organization level as well.
Aniko, you do book emerging Scottish acts. I mentioned that you had Fada this year. Did you have Bottle Rockets last year? Or you definitely had Gallus, didn't you? Spires maybe last year. And Gallus, I think, played an Italian stage for some reason, but they are actually from Glasgow.
Yeah, we have a number of stages, and the so-called Italian stage is the up-and-coming stage. So that's a really fun place to check. And I just wanted to touch back to a second what Fruzsi said about just the sheer number of acts that we have to take care of during the festival. As much as we may love certain acts, we just don't have the capacity to offer them other, or to even discuss other. Sure, if they ask, we will be happy to help. If we have contacts, we will give them to you. But we just don't have the time. In our 6 stages that we attend to, it's 150 plus acts. With all the advancing, all the contracts, all the everything is just a lot to handle. But there was something else I wanted to say that I forgot.
When you remember, just give me a sign, and then we can bring it up.
Oh yes, sorry. We do talk to other festivals. So you were asking if there are other festivals we talk to, like for example at Eurosonic, we hang out with these other festivals and we go see bands with these other festival bookers. So for sure we talk and we're like, oh, hey, did you see this band? You really should keep an eye out for them and such.
I mean, it is interesting because we come to, Eurosonic in a minute, because you do get that where artists play that and then all those people like yourself that have been hanging out, going to the shows, end up booking them. And, especially, I mean, even going back to the, Franz Ferdinand years ago, ended up getting loads of bookings on the, on the back of it for festivals. So it's almost like a place where, a festival where festivals go to find out who they're going to book. So I think that, I understand what all of you are saying, that, you can't just fix up everyone with gigs. So let's pause that for a second and then come to the concept of how can we maybe create a framework for when people are playing your festivals that doesn't involve you working as de facto agents in your territory, but where there still can be some sort of support within it, some other kind of, in Norway, just off the top of my head, it's really common for artists that are doing club shows to get booked as DJs afterwards. So they essentially getting a double fee. So what I'd like to get away from is this, like, this is far too much time and it's really time consuming and we can't do it, and get to the point where, like, what things have you got within your framework where it's like, all right, here's another option for you, or here's something else that you can earn a little bit more for, or here's something else that we can potentially offer you to unlock it, or just to make it, broaden the opportunities. But before we come on to that, and then I want to also mention Live Europe and where other people can perhaps help us in this kind of international mission to try and get some sort of movement forwards on this subject. So, but before I do that, right, Janneke, you've been really patient and sitting there thinking, when are they going to stop talking, especially Olaf, right? So tell us a bit about Eurosonic. I mean, obviously on the sustainability front, you have got an initiative that helps artists come to the event by train. Tell us a little bit about that, but then also I think that on that bigger scheme of things, are there perhaps possibilities of you're an artist, a relevant artist speaking at the conference, or doing something else that, maybe stopping off en route to play somewhere else? What sort of things do you have in place, formally or informally?
Yeah, something that is, I think, very relevant in this topic is the European Talent Exchange program that we have at ESNS. It has been around for a little over 20 years, I think. And it is a program that was initiated, I guess, because of this type of reasoning, how to make it count, not because ESNS is a showcase festival, so we are really there for emerging artists, not the headliners. And we really want the artist to have a worthwhile showcase. So one way is, of course, that there are numbers of delegates, industry professionals who show up to the festival and the conference. But in the European Talent Exchange program, for the people who are not familiar with it, is a program where, if you are selected for Eurosonic to play at Eurosonic, you are immediately part of the program. And what it holds is that we have, I think, over 130 partner festivals, and I believe all of your festivals are partner in this program, which is great.
Because Europe is the partner. So
yes,
all the Europe festivals are partnering in the exchange program.
Exactly. So, but we also have partners from outside of Europe, some festivals from outside of Europe who are part of this program. And how it works is that they send bookers over to Eurosonic, and when a festival booker likes an artist that they saw at Eurosonic and they book it for their own festival, and the artist is from another country than their home country, so to speak, from the program, they receive support, a fee, basically, to and that way we encourage festivals to, besides headliners, also book emerging artists. And well, it's called European Talent Exchange for a reason. It is an exchange between European festivals and for European music and emerging artists. So I think that is probably the most relevant thing we do in this. When it comes to like making it count. Of course, it doesn't solve the sustainability issue that you already tackled a little bit. We do have a program for that as well, which is the Green Tour support. And that was actually going so well that we have been able to make it a little bit more worthwhile as well. That you can not only apply for some money to cover the extra cost that you would make if you are getting out of the plane, basically. So if you travel alternatively, so you don't take a plane from London, for example, but not a plane, but a train, for example, sorry. That we can cover the extra cost, like the cost that you make, that you're paying more compared to what you would have paid otherwise. And now we're also able to do it for artists who are playing after their Eurosonic gig, who are playing one of the exchange festivals. You can also apply for some money for this. So, yeah, that's the way we try to do our best.
So with the train thing, and I mention this because we've looked at it the past couple of years. For anyone who doesn't know, we also host the Scottish reception at Eurosonic, and we do some support promo around all the Scottish acts that are showcasing there. And what we found is that it is too much to do that train journey in one blast. So inevitably, just from us as delegates and, I guess a de facto export office, what we're finding is it's not just the journey, it's just having to break that journey. So looking at it from an artist perspective, with their instruments and everything else, what we need to make that feasible from a Scottish perspective is somewhere for those artists to stop en route and perform. So, this is another challenge, and I'm interested in any sort of, we had a great panel this morning off the beaten track that's really looking at places that aren't necessarily on that touring map where you could well end up breaking a journey. The point was made really eloquently this morning about the fact that actually those venues that are off the beaten track are perhaps the places where you can stop overnight, get paid to do a show to a receptive audience, and then continue on to your big show wherever that might be. So what we're looking at, and this is a collective challenge for all of you, if is Aurelian in the room, or is he doing meetings? So we've got a French booker here, for example. So this is already where my mind is at with this is like, let's be plotting a route for a Scottish act to do a couple of shows in England. They can do it on the train, providing the MVT's excellent idea of providing backline for every member venue comes into play. So artists don't have to schlep around like a bunch of giant amps and stuff. And this is then rolled out across Europe. And it amazes me speaking to really established venues in, places like Germany or in Belgium that are like, yeah, I spoke to my boss about getting some basic backline, but they're not into it. And you're just like, it's just a fucking drum kit, and some basic backline. It's not that hard, You're a really well-established venue. Anyway, that aside, going into this, speaking of the sustainability point, this is a problem to solve. And I think the idea around how we can do that and enable artists to travel by train is something that we should really keep in mind, because it does form part of this bigger challenge, basically.
I mean,
Sorry.
Aniko was about to say something, and while so you don't forget, straight in there, yeah.
So we welcome, like we give shuttles to our bands, of course, from Budapest airport or for any of the train stations. But like the more east you go in Europe, the less reliable trains become with us. So that's something to keep in mind. And
Speak to any German about that as well. You know, the idea of efficiency is no longer applies with Deutsche Bahn.
But when we, like you brought Feira, for example, when we booked their show, it was really important for the band, and the band has an agency, to book shows around it, because, like, as you also mentioned, it's just not feasible. Like the one-off is just financially and like in other ways, it just doesn't make sense. And so they were able to book a mini Euro tour. And we hope also when we book these emerging acts, we hope, and like oftentimes these bands are even a little bit shameless and like say to us that, oh, this gig at Sziget would be really good for our promo. And I'm like, I know, you know, but to have that in writing, that's like, you know, that's another thing. But we think that, you know, when they say that, okay, we're going to play this show at Sziget and we're looking to book a show at your venue before or after, that's going to be something like, oh, these guys are playing at Sziget. Okay, we know Sziget. So then, yeah, you know, play here, like, I don't know, a couple of days before or like a day before or whatever, what works. And also when we book artists, and we book a lot of these emerging artists too, because we're a 5-day festival, and like we book in a way that generally first it's, so we send the deal memo and we're like, to be discussed between the 11th and 15th. And when it's closer to the date, when they have their shows aligned, so I forget who mentioned, but like the planning, for them to plan a tour around it, it's super important, and we're totally okay with that. So if you let us know, like if we book you in December and you let us know in February that, you know, out of the 5 days or 6 days, which day is best for you, that's, you know, that's okay with us. So we're gonna cater to that, and we're gonna help you in that, so you could make your route happen and not, you know.
So you see, at the start I was like, oh, these guys aren't really doing anything, but you are, yeah. And this is the, you know, you kind of sell yourself a bit short, and it's only like half an hour in where it's like, actually you are already helping solve this problem. And I think that's a really important thing to stress, because it, you know, you've described it fairly modestly, but I think from, you know, from an objective perspective, it is one of the biggest festivals in Europe. And I think that it's really interesting from that perspective that in spite of that size, you are creating conditions that enable artists to do this, rather than preventing them through, you know, super strict exclusivity clauses. And, you know, I think that is already that's really already a positive step.
And one more thing. So last year we piloted. It was new to us, but we did it and it worked. An artist village. So what we do is that, of course, there's the main stage and there's Revolut stage. That's a different ball game. But the rest of the stages, they have a shared artist village. So you will have everyone on that day who is performing. You will have it in the same backstage. Catch them, talk to them, talk about potential collaborations, and this is great for especially emerging artists, because, you know, you have this open bar, you know, you have all of the artists there in the same place. Talk to them, like grab their manager. And this is great for Hungarian bands too, of course, but for internationals too. And I didn't talk about this before, but Sziget is about like 50-50 Hungarian and international guests. So, and that's why our exclusivity, like we didn't really do exclusivity for emerging acts, because the 50, like it's probably not going to be the same audience for your show if you go, a couple of days before to a very different electronic fest than us. So that's one thing. And this year, what we're aiming to do is to have a pro delegate area. So we're gonna invite international bookers, like venues, also national, like Hungarian venues, to just come and visit and talk to certain managers. And it's a good opportunity for bands too, let that be local or international, to grab and talk to these people.
And will those pro delegates be announced in quite well in advance, so people can actually arrange those meetings?
Where there's been a bit of an ownership change, so we're a little bit behind everything. We're not quite there with the details yet. So that's a really good question, but I'm not able to answer that quite yet.
That's fine. Have we got any venues in the room? Right. Okay. So we got. Can we get a mic over to the venues? I'm just wondering. Having heard what you've heard, what can you see yourself fitting into this equation, either for artists coming from outside the UK or for artists going traveling from the UK to Europe?
On my side, I work in marketing for a venue, so I'm not really someone who's responsible for making those decisions. And also I work for quite a large venue, so I don't know if this would
Which one is it?
Guess.
I can't actually see you very well.
It's a big one.
Right, so you're from the Hydro then?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome. I wrote an article. I was at the very first show in the Hydro. Just so anyone who knows, just a bit of Hydro trivia. It was just about to open a few weeks before it opened. There was a huge fire, and they still managed to open on time. So it was like one of the few big building projects in Scotland that was A, completed on time, and B, completed in time in spite of a massive fire. So big up the Hydro. Right. So what would you say? Does this? I suppose from that huge perspective, it's perhaps not quite sort of fitting in those bits, but have you got any sort of, based on what you've heard, any ideas you've got, or is it inspiring you to, any suggestions that you might have?
I would love even though we are a big venue, I would love for us to have some sort of initiative where we can go and kind of support more kind of smaller scale artists from a more grassroots level. I think that would be really, something in time that we could hopefully try and support. So I don't know if maybe, somewhere down the line that would be something that we could maybe help out with from.
Yeah, there was an Arenas initiative for putting on grassroots artists playing in the foyers and things about 10 years ago. Is the guy from Belfast, from one of the big that pioneered that. I don't know, in Rockhall in Luxembourg, but yeah, well, we can have a chat about that. Excellent. I know that we got Chris from Mac Arts just in my peripheral vision. I recognize that because I see your hat. So Mark, perfect, even better. I mean, if you were, let's say we've got one of the artists from Quebec that are coming to do Y Days or going on to Focus Wales, is this something that's interesting for you from, going, right, okay, they're en route, they can stop off in Galashiels and do a Mac Arts show, or, head there after they've done Y Days?
So I think it's really exciting to be able to get international bands in and touring as part of something like that. For me, it'd be how I get the right audience in to make it viable, both for the band and for the venue. So, if we can tap into funding and that sort of thing for it as well, that would make it work. But it's then exposure in the UK to other bands as well. So would they play with 1, 2, 3 bands as well on the same bill, which would then encourage maybe a bigger crowd into it, which could then expose bands that are not known in the area, but also give the opportunity to audience members to see them and meet other bands that are playing that would draw a crowd. Okay, and Faye, behind you from Lancaster, where do you see Lancaster fitting into this? So you probably weren't expecting me to just put you on the spot about this, no. But you know, where's Lancaster on this giant puzzle to make the things a better place?
Well, Lancaster's about an hour north of Manchester to start with, so it's great if you're doing a tour between Manchester and Glasgow and want to stop off on the train. We provide a backline. But yeah, so us in Lancaster, so I'm part of Back Gen Furlough Productions, and we do both grassroots and corporate. We primarily go towards grassroots. We prefer working with grassroots artists and artists who are underrepresented in this. And we have done so that we've helped them get tours all around the UK, and with that, people have helped them get tours out of the UK as well in the EU. But then they've also grabbed like our local artists who have brought a crowd in, and then they've started touring with them. So we had a one band on, and they've got one of our local artists called Kiwi to tour with them, and they've just done the O2 Ritz. And there's a band called Rise who are starting to get a touring scene now. So it is doable. You can get bigger artists into these little places, and venues can do it, because we do it off our own back as well. We don't have venue support. Like, if anything, venue screws over a lot. Not going to lie, venue screws over massively. They're forever booking the prices up, so it can be done.
Okay, well, I think it's an interesting insight from, you know, within the UK, and I wonder if we are able to patch in Daniel from Budapest, because he was keen to join in person, but he's not able to make it in person. But what's interesting as well is his venue A38 is, there we go, welcome. The last time I saw him, he was sitting to my left, and I was you can't really say feeding him whiskey, but I was plying him with whiskey, tasting at Eurosonic, no less. So this is interesting from two perspectives. We've had various bookers from something called the Live Europe Network, which was founded, 12 years ago, and has something like 24 members in, what, am I right in thinking 22 countries, Daniel? Something like that. So each country has within the EU has, plus some others, Switzerland, for example, has one venue, and these venues basically they get from the European Commission, they get a grant which allows them to underwrite each show to the tune of 950 euros, which allows them then to offer accommodation or something extra for the artists. But they also share artists, so you can basically it's a ready-made touring network, and the venues pay a membership fee, but they essentially, if they book a minimum, what is it, 10 acts, or is it 15, Daniel, then you pretty much get that
from
money
15
back.
to 50.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting initiative. Craig Salter from the Scottish Government's just walked out about 5 minutes ago. I was pushing for this before the election for a Scottish venue to be supported to join, but hopefully that will still happen after the election. It would be incredible, because basically what it means is that there is that little bit of a safety net for the venues to actually take a bit of a risk on an act that might not sell millions of tickets, but that might do on their next tour. So, Daniel, welcome. You've hopefully been able to hear everything so far. Have you?
Okay, yeah.
So, I guess, tell us a bit about the venue. Tell us a bit about your experience of working within Live Europe, and then any ideas that you have that been prompted by this discussion where you feel you could be fitting into this ecosystem, and also any things that you think would be really helpful to make this work?
Yeah, thank you for having me, despite I couldn't join by person. So my name is Daniel. I'm from Budapest. I'm a venue booker of A38 Szép, Budapest, which is what became in the past 23 year, one of the most iconic venues in the city by its progressive programming and also a big part of having international emerging artists and artists before the breakout, stuff like that. And the fun fact, the birthday of the ship is just today. So the first ever show happened 23 years ago. So anyways, yeah, what should I do? So I'm also part of the programming team of a small under niche festival in the country called Fekete Zaj as well. So I in both cases I'm responsible to find the next generation, the coolest new sounds, and then try to discover the new quality gems in different parts, in different genres and visions. And as Olaf already said, that A38 is the part of this fantastic network called Live Europe, which is around 12 years, and we are in this really lucky position that A38 being there since the scratch. So it has been started with 20 or 15 venues, and right now we have 24 venues in 24 countries, one venue for each partner country right now. And why is this a lucky position? As a part of this network, we not even have the possibility to having artists from the European emerging scene, as a minimum 15 artists per year, up to 50 each venues. But in these turbulent times, globally and locally as well, having the ability to book fresh and really interesting artists without real risk, it's a really good.
Daniel, can I ask you a question here?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Do the artists have to be from within member countries, or are you also able to program acts from the UK?
Basically, it's a European Union and Creative Europe-based program. So we can, all the venues can book bands from all the Creative Europe countries, which is, I don't know the exact number.
So yeah,
we can look it up.
So young fathers.
So basically, all over Europe, yes, and the only criteria that you cannot book from your own country through this network to your venue, but we have very good networks between the venues. So especially in the Eastern European area, we in the past 4 years when I joined the team of A38, We had plenty of collaborations with the neighboring countries, helping bands to adding more spots in the tour, using this tool,
Okay.
as a tool.
So, I mean, it's worth mentioning that when Britain was a member of the EU, Young Fathers, Lewis Capaldi, and Frightened Rabbit all played through the Live Europe network. So 3 of the biggest musical exports from Scotland in the past decade or so, the next generation are currently denied that because of Brexit. So, which is really unfortunate, but I mean, hopefully this could change because Switzerland has a venue and they've got a format for taking part in this network. Having heard from, you know, the panelists, Daniel, is there something that springs to mind already for where you might be able to see the Live Europe network making a difference or helping to make things count? And before you answer that, it would be remiss of me not to ask straight away, but we've got at least 3 Scottish acts doing Waves Vienna. Can we bring them to A38 afterwards?
Everything depends on these plans. Basically, I'm very much looking forward to see these offers, and and let's start to discuss.
What would make it attractive? What would make it attractive for you? I mean, I could bring whiskey and stuff, and for that'd be my opening offer, and then obviously some very good artists that Sarah's booking.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Because to be honest, that's exactly the question. When everything comes down to funding. We're talking about emerging talents. That's bands that don't pull that many people. We know that all the venues in the UK, in Germany, in Netherlands, in Austria are struggling. They don't have the money to book acts that don't pull enough people to fill up the club because they have costs running it. And as Mark said before, like, funding is an issue.
Can I ask one thing, right? Imagine a world where the word funding doesn't exist, because quite often I go to events and I hear the word funding more than I do music, right? And I know it's important. We wouldn't have an event without funding. You wouldn't either, right? But we work in a creative sector. We have Maz from Maz and the Phantasms, who's sitting in the back of this room, who, as far as I know, has had no funding, but has done 3 European tours, right? Is just back from a UK tour. So let's look at this. Can we maybe look at who might give us money that's not going to involve like a huge amount of forms, or how do we solve this conundrum without using the F word?
I was coming up with an idea for that.
Great, okay.
So basically, it's about like attracting people to coming to your show. You can do it like either ways. For example, like there is this Austrian Music Expert initiative when Austrian bands were going to Eurosonic this year. There was like they were playing our show in Berlin. A couple of Austrians together. They got some funding because like that has a bigger impact if there are couple of bands playing there. And of course, it's more attractive if you have like maybe a night of Scottish acts in the A38, for example. Or you connect to an act from each country and play a support tour. Showcase festivals are a perfect place to connect to bands from that certain country, for example. So if you're playing Vienna, connect with Austrian bands, and then maybe you can do an exchange, them playing support for you in your country and the other way around. And that's like creating a network in Europe for yourselves, having like band connections in every country. And then you can set up a tour like that more easier without public funding, maybe.
I think it's a really good, it's a good point, because it speaks to the connection element as well. I mean, again, to cite Maz as an example, Faye has come up, Faye's working with Maz, and Maz has sorted out, Faye was somewhere to stay with a friend in Edinburgh. That's that kind of thing of going, it's not going, all right, I don't have a ton of cash to, I have not filled in a grant form in time, so I can't make it up to Edinburgh. It's like, right, how do we solve this problem? You know, I mean, I slept on numerous floors. I still occasionally share a room with my business partner on trips because, you know, there's just not the money to do it, and it's just that element of creativity. So going back to the point around this Scottish event that we are going to put in A38, is there, what would make this attractive for you? So? Let's work backwards. What would make this attractive? What would make it feasible for you? Because I mean, I make kind of light of it, but I'm genuinely interested in what you as a proactive venue are looking for, and you know, what could help. What kind of sponsorship opportunities are there? What sort of things would facilitate it for you that I might not have thought of?
Yeah, there's actually all the events are unique in terms of economic and everything. Yeah, for example, yeah, just refer back to, sorry, I just forgot your name, and Waves Vienna. So, for example, a creative touring plan or a combination or co-bills with Austrian bands from Waves Vienna could be an option. I mean, there could be many different kind of options, but for example, we have very good relationships with different national cultural associations, and we have a fairly good collaboration with the Austrian Cultural Forum, for example. So if they are anyway in the region and playing in Waves Vienna, we can even think to making up regional co-bills, for example, with Austrian bands or with together with other Live Europe artists to make the Spanish more workable, doable. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
If there's anything else that springs to mind, we'll just put your hand up, but don't go away, because I'm going to bring my old friend Thomas into this chat. He wasn't expecting this, but can someone give Thomas a microphone? We've known each other for more than 2 decades, and he used to be the promotions guy for a German label that released all sorts of interesting electronic stuff, and was based in the middle of what I seem to remember was just like the middle of a field. Anyway, Thomas is now on the board of the German-Irish Pubs Association, and this might sound like a bit of a random thing, but actually when you hear what he's got to say, I think we've maybe got someone that can assist with this, because, you know, mostly if I'm going to a lot of places and I'm with people that are heading to an Irish pub, they just sink a little bit in my imagination, especially if you're somewhere like the Czech Republic, where you're like, man, this country has some of the best beer in the world. Why don't you go to a Czech pub and hang out with Czechs, right? Germany is a bit different, and you know, essentially the Irish pubs there attract a more elevated, imaginative, music-friendly clientele, and they pay to see shows, and there's lots of them, and it's a receptive audience with the opportunity to, you know, for the artist to be paid and have somewhere to stay, and I guess like have a change from drinking the equal best beer in the world to maybe going back to a pint of Guinness. Thomas, tell me, where do you see potentially you fitting into this kind of whole challenge that we have to make it count? If someone was going to play at one of Fruzsina's festivals, do you see there's opportunities for, you know, artists to go and play in one of your, or more than one of your member pubs?
I have to say thank you to be here, and hello to everybody. In general, yes, it's probably the same what you said before. The Irish pubs are a brand, and of course the music has to fit to it. For the Irish pubs in Germany, they have a big impact on the music. We have a joint venture of more than 100 pubs, and we are in a lucky situation that we have a very young audience. A lot of these pubs have a capacity of 200 to 300 people, and with a lot of live music. And also what we had the panel earlier on, we do support also a lot of local bands and also bands from abroad, because we also have to work on it that the music program is different and interesting and also appeals to a lot of people. And we have the opportunity, or we have the chance, or in our network, that we can create tours. And like if one band, for example, comes over from Scotland and plays on one of these festivals, it's great because then they're there already. So for us, it's always quite easy to create a tour around if it fits to everything music-wise. And then it gives also the opportunity for the booker or for the band to say, okay, we have a tour. As soon as you have a tour, you can connect the media, you can connect the radio, and you can create a promotion around it. In general, yes, that's possible. We do that already in our network, and especially with the newcomers. Because it is quite difficult, let's say, for a band to get to a certain stage that they fill an audience, that they fill in a hall, and that they have a bigger audience. So we try to help with that, because the good thing is the same with the festivals. The people are there already, so we pick the bands and the artists that would fit to it, and it makes them a little bit easier to play there. I would say, on the one hand, we hold their hands. Even if the artist is a little bit newer, we help them to engage with the audience, we help them with the technique. So in this case, of course, this would be a good chance to work together. If a newcomer comes to a festival, it's in Europe anyway, and then if you know that early enough, we could create a tour around, or at least in that region, so that also the traveling.
And remember, Germany is a big place, right? So you'll have members that are close to Poland, close to Austria, close to Switzerland, close to the Czech Republic. So, you know, in a way, this is kind of, it's almost through this that I see that there's a potential here. I mean, do you reckon that we could just, what's the closest member you've got to Vienna? Do you know?
The closest member to Vienna is actually one in Vienna, but the next one would be, I would say, Munich.
Right.
And then there's Regensburg, there's Bayreuth, there's all the south and the southeast.
And how long would that be on the train if Deutsche Bahn is running on time? I mean, I know that's not a guarantee.
Okay, that's probably the biggest challenge if they run. Like with a high-speed train, actually, it's not that bad. So we're talking about, we'll say Vienna to Munich is probably about 2.5, 3 hours.
Right, perfect.
It's all possible. Yeah.
So I feel we're getting somewhere here for our pilot here, Thomas. Sarah. We've also got the possibility if Fader are perhaps doing something in this year. How far is it from Budapest to, you know, somewhere in Germany? What's the closest you've got to Hungary?
Berlin is not that. Sorry. I would say the closest would be Berlin, or also a little bit further down. Again, it would be Munich or Nuremberg. Also, like the cities there.
Right. Look. This is, and we haven't seen each other for ages, right? And he just appears like this kind of Irish pub oracle, and I think this is good, because I feel we've perhaps getting closer to something here. I'd want to move briefly from the live side of things and just bring in her picture, because this initiative that Sarah's pioneered around the songwriting camp, or rather the residency, because it's not a songwriting camp. I mean, Oscar's going from one place to the next and hanging out with different artists from around the UK. I'm really interested in what your experience has been, because you guys hadn't really met before other than online, and then, you know, the next thing, Oscar's in Edinburgh recording with you. What was it like?
It was really nice, actually, not having that prior interaction, almost, because it meant that when we went into the session, it felt very organic. Originally, I'd planned to do maybe like a playlist and get together some influences, because I know Oscar's from more of a pop background, and myself and Finlay from more of a rock background. So I'd planned to kind of get some foundations there in terms of like similarities, but almost not having that was great, because it meant we had genuine discussions and really checked in with each other, and we got to know each other as people. And you tend to find that you collaborate best with people when you're establishing that common wavelength and you're actually getting to know the artist and the person. So that was really great, and having a small contained environment. It was in the studio in Leith that Finlay has, so it was the three of us and then Flora as well, so it was a good environment.
And you know, you're going to play at Waves, and what difference do you think? And you're doing Focus Wales as well, right? So this is two places where Oscar is also going to be. What difference does that make to you as artists, that you're going to be now playing two other cities, and you've made this international connection, you've worked with that person? I mean, have you had time to really mentally digest that? And are there any things where you're already thinking, actually, this is great. We've got this international pal that we're going to hang out with again in Wrexham next week, and then we're going to see again in Vienna. And, you know, where could you see this going?
Well, I think, first of all, it takes a lot of pressure off, because as amazing as these events are, they can be quite intimidating for artists. So having familiar faces in the room, it really does help a ton, especially when you're sharing networks as well. So Oscar knows people that we don't, and vice versa. So it really does create connections and break down boundaries. And obviously having the repeat in terms of going to Focus Wales, it helps strengthen those connections. So the track that we did, we're really keen on eventually releasing, and we're having conversations with Oscar about that, and then potentially having more sessions when we go through to Vienna, and keeping the momentum up. So it's great to keep those connections alive, and having as many opportunities in person to do that, as well as online. It's perfect.
I think as well, like on a sort of more like wholesome level, like Oscar texted me just 2 minutes ago asking a good burger place in Edinburgh. And so I was
why
like,
is the fucker not here? Yeah, we'd have fed him and everything. Yeah,
but I was like, that sort of like closeness of, he said when we go over, just like, you know, we'll all just walk around and just like look around Vienna together, so we can like feel more comfortable, you know.
You know, I'm sure he's got his reasons that he couldn't come. Maybe it was because we only had vegetarian food. So if he's after a burger, he would not be satisfied with our offering. But I think this is a really interesting and, you know, illuminating element to it. And I also think it's a really important thing to emphasize, because unfortunately the Mexicans from the Radio Bestia that are here, that are at the event, aren't actually in the room. I suspect they're at the bar. But the interesting thing with those guys is that they've got a radio station, they've got practice rooms, and they have this kind of whole ability to promote artists. So they were the first on to Fontaine's DC, for example, in Mexico, and they really work as tastemakers. But I think that element of having the infrastructure, I mean, is a really fortunate thing that you have a studio in Leith, and, you know, all the stars aligned as they often do. But I think having those things are, you know, what we're talking about here is if we were to do this, and Daniel, for example, if you decide that this is a good idea, right, and we bring the Scottish acts to, we bring some Scottish acts to Budapest, this is that element of going, right, where could we have them doing some recording with local artists? Or, you know, if we're taking them to play in a nice Irish establishment somewhere in Germany, is there a local studio? Is there someone local that they could work with? Could they be working with the artists, the local artists that they're playing with? And I think, again, it comes back to these connection points. One thing I haven't touched on, I just mentioned it at the beginning, but this really interests me, this idea of doing workshops or lectures. Has anyone in the room encountered that before, or has anyone done it before? Faye at the back, can we bring Faye a mic? Yeah, excellent.
So we don't do kind of like workshops in this sort of capacity, but so what we get is 16 to 22-year-olds, sometimes a bit younger, and do PA workshops. And then we also go into, so there's a place in Morecambe called More Music, where we go and speak to teenagers, sometimes a little bit younger, and how to be in the music scene, and how to be a part of it. And then we take those who are interested, we get them to shadow us.
It's interesting because we do this with we just did it for the first time actually with a really helpful grant from the Edinburgh Council to show emerging artists how to set up for live, you know, and they're from, you know, bringing the gear on right through to sound checking and things like that. But I do think that is it's an important point around that preparation for artists, and I suppose that, you know, all of you, including you, Daniel, have you got any perspectives on what kind of prep artists need, especially at that more, you know, I say emerging artist level, I see like lots of quite established acts not really being very good at certain things that could really help them, or maybe I see their agents not being very good at things that could help them. Maybe a bit of both, but it's, you know, are there any things where in your different capacities where you're like, God, it'd be great if someone could, if the artist could do this, or if they did X, Y, and Z, then they could actually really make more of the slot that we're offering them.
I can say something about that. At Eurosonic, sometimes we ask an artist to be on a panel because we have a big conference. And oftentimes artists tend to decline it as well because, well, of course, Eurosonic is a big showcase, and I think a lot of artists feel pressure around their showcase. And they are actually not really open to speaking in a panel sometimes. What they are often open to is doing a live session, for example, and we see that also really helps with their spin-off or like their output. And a lot of media coverage and interviews that we do, or, well, media coverage also comes from like external parties that we have at the at the event. So those are things I think, well, you are the artist, but I think in general, those are things that artists are maybe more comfortable with, especially when you have like a showcase with a lot of pressure on it. So that is my experience with that.
Aniko, if there's something that if you're like, look, artists, listen to this, this is what this would help make it count for you, or help you help yourselves to make it count, what top thing would it be?
So Sziget, it's not Sziget, but many Sziget colleagues attend this showcase called Budapest Showcase Hub, sorry. And there's always a panel, and it's always like Writers of the Storm or something that's like about writers. Like it's crucial, and it would be really important, like super important for bands to know how to write a good writer and how, like, what we expect in a writer. I think everyone should be listening to that. Also, we have like a music school in Hungary, but I don't know if Danny wants to talk about that, maybe.
Danny, do you want to talk about that, the music school?
the Majd Nem Híres, where there's always a guest speaker, and for these young kids, there's always someone. Fruzsi was also one of the speakers 1 week of like these really crucial things on how to, like, you know, what to pay attention to when you want to go to a festival, or how does this writer thing do, how to write a good EPK, what to, you know, how to
so
to do social
just so, I mean, I guess then that's an opportunity potentially for someone to speak at the music school. We've got to wrap it up in about 2 minutes because I've also got to do the final interview. So please come to my final interview as well with Grant McPhee, who's the local hero this year. I'm just going to plug my own session at my own event. But usually everyone fucks off to the bar, and then I'm sort of interviewing someone really interesting in front of about 3 people in the crew. So if you're watching online, stay tuned as well. But anyway, just before we wrap it up, what things would... Is the one thing that you would say could make a real difference for artists to make it count on their own steam? I mean, you two have both mentioned something. Sarah, do you want to mention something? Fruzsina, super quick, something that could make a real difference where artists can help themselves?
At Waves Vienna, we have something called a feedback listening session, where we put like 5 professionals on stage, and as an artist performing at Waves, you can play your song to them and they give feedback on that. And another thing I'm going to introduce this year at the conference is something that I experienced at Tallinn Music Week, where you have like a one-to-one feedback session on a certain topic that was sync. You have music supervisors and you can play the song to them and they give feedback to you. It's a one-to-one session. And every showcase festival or every conference you go, you should take opportunity of these formats. That's really, really helpful, and it's for free, and you're there already. So that's a really good thing.
Fruzsina?
No, I agree what Sarah was just saying, because exactly these formats, what you're doing here at Y Days, Olaf, it's really good to network, to be able to talk. It's not too big, so there's also space to talk, to exchange, to share some knowledge. And what I found really nice yesterday, really with the conversations I had with, I think, 7 artists or groups, is that they are all. They want to develop. They want to learn. They listened. They and they were thankful for all the advices. So that's what we are also here for, to share our knowledge, to share our advice with you guys. And I think
so.
That's.
I guess then listen to advice, especially when you've got a meeting. And Daniel, one thing off the top of your head. Or do we leave it to the next one?
Yeah.
Well, actually, we'll leave it till October when we're coming to Budapest with the Scottish team from Vienna, and I'm going to bring you loads of whiskey. So, right, thanks so much for everyone, for the panelists, to Daniel, to everyone who's been in the room. I know it's been an hour and a half. If you're watching online, you drew the long straw because it's really hot on this stage. So, yes, come back in 15 minutes for the Local Heroes interview, or if you want to know about songwriting, we have an esteemed songwriting veteran, Michelle Escoffrey, who is doing a 15 minutes of knowledge talk on getting the best out of co-writing.